even though most of my experience is in single family houses, whether you're doing mobile home parks, apartments, self-storage, land, it doesn't matter the real estate asset class. The principles and the concepts of attracting private money and funding for your deals are the same, regardless of the asset class. In this space, there's no chasing, begging, selling, or persuading. It's all about attracting the money. You know what's interesting, Eric and Frank, is since 2009, when I started raising private money, I have never asked anybody for money. I've never.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Welcome to the MHP Exchange podcast, where industry veterans Frank Rizzo and Eric Busadil generously share their wealth of knowledge in their new podcast dedicated to the manufactured housing space. They tackle tough questions to provide valuable insights for those considering investments in mobile home parks. If you're seeking answers in the manufactured housing space, this podcast is your go-to resource.
Welcome to another episode of the MHP Exchange podcast. Eric, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good, Frank. How about yourself?
Doing very well, Eric. And as I was coming in, and you guys are streaming this, and as you are streaming this, or you're listening to this, or you're watching this on YouTube, the question coming in today for myself was, why are we here, and why do we put this podcast out? You know, Eric and I have been in real estate for over 20 years apiece, and we've acquired a very specific knowledge about mobile home park investing, which we wanted to share with people who are interested in the space, right? But the reason why we're interested in mobile home park and mobile home park investing is that we found for us that this was a way for us to create wealth, right? Create value and generate cash flow for us, right? That was very important. We wanted to create passive cash flow, which would allow us, you would agree, Eric, financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
So, but to do that, and you back this up. So if you're listening to this program, you want to find a pathway to financial freedom. And it's easy to do if you're coming in with capital. But for us and for you out there listening, you might not have the money to start with. And so this all goes back, because this program is about creating opportunities for yourself and finding a pathway to create that freedom. But it goes back to being able to raise capital for your deals, right? So we might talk about operating, but it goes back to raising capital for your opportunities in real estate. And we have with us today, joining us today, a very special guest, a best-selling author, somebody who's worked with thousands of investors through his course, with over a 20-year experience and track record of just raising capital from private markets for real estate investments. And I want to welcome the private money authority expert, Jay Conner. Jay, welcome to the program.
Frank, Eric, thank you so much for having me come on. I've never actually had a live audience applaud after the introduction. That's amazing. But thank you so much for inviting me to come along to talk about my most favorite and passionate topic, that being private money. And why in the world is that? Because I've never missed out on a deal since 2009 when I started using private money, because of not having the funding. Private money has had more of a major impact on my real estate investing business than any other strategy that I do.
And Jay, you have an interesting story on how you even got there, right? So before we even talk about why you'd want to look at private money, right? Because I think money becomes a limiting factor for people when they look at real estate investing. They say, well, I don't have access to capital. I don't have the ability to get capital. How can I invest if I don't have money? And you cover that topic, but how did you How did you get there? Because your story, I think, is extremely interesting. And I think it'll help a lot of people out there, you at home who are listening. It would help for people to get an understanding of how you came to that conclusion.
Yeah. Well, my wife, Carol Joy, and I, we started investing in single family houses back in 2003 here in Eastern North Carolina. We're in a very, very small market, only 40,000 people. We do 2 to 3 transactions a month, primarily in the single family space. Our average profits are $86,000 per deal. And I do not share that from coming from a position of ego or bragging at all. I share that to make a point. And that is, there's a strong argument to be made that you can make significant income in a small market by dominating a small market. But anyway, we started in 2003, and I do want to just share, even though most of my experience is in single family houses, whether you're doing mobile home parks, apartments, self-storage, land, it doesn't matter the real estate asset class, the principles and the concepts of attracting private money and funding for your deals are the same, regardless of the asset class. In this space, there's no chasing, begging, selling, or persuading. It's all about attracting the money. You know what's interesting, Eric and Frank, is since 2009, when I started raising private money, I have never asked anybody for money. I've never asked anybody for money. I'll get into how that works. So how in the world did I get into it? Well, you see, from 2003 until 2009, January 2009 to be specific, I relied on the local bank. I relied on institutional money to fund my deals. That's all I knew to do. For those first 6 years, all I knew to do is go to the local bank, get on my hands and knees, put my hands underneath my chin and say, please fund my deals, right? And my banker made me pull up my skirt so they could look at all my personal assets and show my financial statements and pull my credit score. And for goodness sakes, sometimes they'd even give me a colonoscopy to make sure I was credit worthy. You know, that's all I knew to do. And that worked okay. That worked okay for the first 6 years until January 2009. I was sitting here at my desk. Frank, Eric, I know you'll find it hard to believe. We actually still have handsets and cords attached to a landline here, you know, out of the ordinary. Anyway, I was sitting here at my desk and I picked up this phone and I called my banker. My banker, his name was Steve. At the time, it was BB&T. It's been bought out now by Truist. But anyway, I called up Steve, my banker. Steve and I had done a lot of deals over 6 years in the single family house space. And I called up Steve to tell him about these 2 houses that I had under contract to purchase that represented over $100,000 in profit. And I learned right away on my telephone conversation that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me. I said, Steve, what in the world are you doing telling me that my line of credit is closed? I've made my payments on time for 6 years. I got an 800 credit score. Why are you closing my line of credit? He said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a global financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund these 2 deals that I've got under contract. He said, sorry, Jay, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors anymore right now. I hung up the phone, Eric and Frank. I hung up my phone. I sat here at my desk for a moment. And I asked myself a very, very important question. And this question I'm getting ready to share with you and your audience will help fix any problem that anybody's got going on. I don't care if it's health, financial, relationships, career, I don't care. This question helps fix any problem. By the way, these people running around saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Let's face the facts. I had a problem. No way to fund my deals. So here's the question I asked myself that's very powerful. And the question I asked myself was, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And immediately when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship, who lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, a dear friend of mine and Carol Joy. And he was investing in single family houses in Greensboro at the time. And I called him up and I told him what had happened. He said, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, well, what club is that, Jeff? He said, that's the club of having your line of credit shut down. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, how are you going to fund your deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private lending and private money lenders and private money? I said, no. I said, what's that? He says, well, that's when you do business with an individual that loans out money to you from their investment capital and you pay them high rates of return. He says, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs? I said, no, what's that? He said, that's where people can take their retirement funds that they have that they're not happy with the returns, and they can move those funds with no tax penalty over to an IRS-approved self-directed IRA company. And then they can loan that money out to you on your deals, and you can pay them either tax-deferred or tax-free interest, unlimited per year. I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what in the world you're talking about, but I knew Jeff had told me something. So I hung up the phone, and Frank and Eric, I studied private money, and I put my program together that I was going to offer people, first of all, in my warm market through my own connections. So let me share a quick little secret here about how I've never asked for money. So what did I do? You know, most people talk about pitching deals. Guys, I've never pitched a deal in my life. Why have I never pitched a deal in my life? Because I separate the conversation of teaching people in my network and networks what private money and private lending is, and then having the deal for them to invest in. So here's the mindset. Here's a big part of the secret sauce. I put on my teacher hat, and my teacher hat says private money teacher. Private money teacher. So I take on the mindset of teaching people what private money is, how they can get involved, how they can get high rates of return safely and securely. You know what's interesting, Eric and Frank, is I got 47 investors. I got 47 private lenders right now funding my deals. And you know what's interesting? Not one of those 47 private lenders doing business with us right now ever heard of private money until I put on my teacher hat and exposed it to them, right? So, you know, here's a writer downer. Here's a writer downer. Desperation has got a smell to it.
Sure.
The worst time to be raising capital is when you need it for a deal with a deadline. But in this world, guess what? We get to make the rules. We set the interest rate. You're already approved. There's no applications. We are our own underwriter. That's one of the biggest differences between borrowing institutional money and raising your own capital, is because when you raise your own capital, you get to make the rules. We set the interest rate. We set the frequency of payments. We set the maximum loan to value. And so we're offering an opportunity. So instead of applying for a mortgage, we're offering opportunities, creating win-win scenarios. Everybody wins. That's the mindset. You know, people ask me all the time, Jay, I've never raised capital. How do I get started? I can tell you how you get started. You got to own the real estate between your ears first.
So
First.
You know, Jay, and I get, you know, necessity is the mother of all creation, right? So you needed to raise capital because you had a deal. Then you learned how to raise capital, and now your focus is raising that capital even before you have the deal, right? Which is a little bit different than where I think most deal sponsors, right? Well, or most investors find themselves, right? I had always subscribed to the deal, and you know, my story is similar in some respects, where I didn't have the capital to do the deals I wanted. But if I knew if I could find a deal, right, that was my skill set. I could find an opportunity where I knew the numbers would work, the capital would flow. You've kind of taken that in a different approach where, you know, you spend more time teaching people how to raise capital first, and then they find the deal. Like how does your system work?
Yeah, that particularly works in the single family house space. Now, whether you're syndicating, I don't syndicate. My mastermind members don't syndicate, because you don't need a syndication for single family houses. Everything we do is what's called one-offs. You got a single family house, you got a private lender, maybe a couple of private lenders funding that deal. But, if you're going to do multifamily, if you're going to do apartments, so question for you, Frank and Eric, do you all syndicate?
Yes.
Yeah. And that would make sense. That would make sense for you to syndicate because, you're not raising $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 typically for a single family house. You may be raising hundreds of thousands and maybe into the millions of dollars when you've got, a project. So I guess just to make sure, I'm sure you may have some new audience members. I guess we should take a moment, and I'm going to give myself a break and take a breath. Eric or Frank, why don't you take a moment and explain to your audience? I sound like I'm the host. I'm not the host. Anyway, why don't you explain to your audience what's the difference between syndication? What in the world is syndication? And what is like what I do in single families, one-offs for single family houses.
So, and there's a place for both of this, but a syndication model is where you have a group of accredited investors who are going to participate in an opportunity where they're all going to take a piece to participate, but they're not going to operate the deal. They're going to be equity owners, and they're going to do a proportion of the cash flow that property generates, but they're going to be groups. So it's not one investor in particular, but it's probably a group of accredited investors who are going to participate in an opportunity that's going to be run and operated by a deal sponsor, and hopefully somebody who is expert in the area that they're going to be sponsoring the deal in.
Exactly.
In your from what you're doing is more on the lending side. So you're raising awareness and preparing people to be lenders. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. As I mentioned, my 47 private lenders, and this goes the same for my mastermind members, typically none of our lenders or / investors, and by the way, and I think you all will agree with this, Eric and Frank, even if you're syndicating and raising money for a fund, your investors really, even though you explain the deal, you explain the opportunity, they got an equity share. My private lenders don't get an equity share. They get my private lenders are like the bank, right? They get the same protection as a bank. They get a promissory note. They get a mortgage or a deed of trust that collateralizes that note. We name them on the insurance policy as a mortgagee. So in my world, the private lender is quote unquote the bank. They're not like part, ownership. But, whether you're syndicating, raising money for a fund or whatever, would you all agree that even though in your world of mobile home parks, which by the way, side note, my dad, Wallace J. Connor, 91 years old, he's slap dab in the middle of a brand new 350 new home build development at 91 years old.
Wow.
At the moment,
At one time, his company, Connor Corporation, was the largest retailer of mobile homes, manufactured homes in the nation. Connor Homes was a vertically integrated. He started selling mobile homes. They called them wobbly boxes and trailers in 1959, but he started selling them next to his dad's grocery store in little teeny tiny Harlow, North Carolina. So I grew up in the mobile home business. I grew up in the mobile home business and didn't start getting into single family houses until 2003. But nonetheless, back to my point. Would you not agree that whether you're syndicating, raising money for a fund, or you're doing one-offs for single family houses, would you agree that your investors are really, really more investing in you than they are really the deal?
Jay, that is 100%.
100%, Jay.
Yeah, and so let's unpack that for a second. Since the people are really, their decision, yes, their decision is they love the returns. You got an opportunity. They're going to get, an 8% or 10% or 12% or 15%, whatever it is, projected return, if you're syndicating, et cetera. Of course, that excites them. the return excites them, but their decision as to whether to move forward or not is based on whether they think. Here's what it comes down to. It comes down to whether they think you're going to pay them or not. That's it. That's it. Do they believe that you're going to perform? Do they believe that you're going to carry through? And so why is that such an important thing to realize? The mindset, owning the real estate between your ears, right? So, yeah, if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to?
Nobody.
Yeah. If you don't have confidence in performing, who else is going to have confidence in you, for goodness sakes? So that begs the question. How do you get confidence?
Well, that's a great question, because I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It all goes down to the real estate between your ears and how you view it and how you're, addressing that. So your teaching methods to get people to understand, like, what are the benefits of being an investor on the private money side? Like, how, because it is different than taking the equity state, and you do have some of those protections, but what are, for those of you out there listening, like, what are those protections? Where are those benefits lay out there? Because you've had to, obviously, you've raised hundreds of millions of dollars and you've taught thousands of people how to do this, right? So what is the kind of like the secret sauce in that creates that value for the private money investor?
There's more, but there's primarily three big reasons why a new private lender or investor decides to do business with us or with you. Well, with us specifically. Number one, they're going to make a lot of money. They're going to make more money than they can, for sure, than taking their money, investment capital, or their retirement funds. By the way, here's a writer downer. If you're listening to this show and you want to be a capital raiser for your real estate deals, you don't have to do anything. I recommend you establish a relationship with a self-directed IRA company, so that when you're talking with somebody that is new to, this opportunity, then, and if you learn they got retirement funds, then if they don't know about this, the way you do this, you want to have a relationship so you can introduce them to a self-directed IRA representative to where they can move their retirement funds and do business with you. That was a side note. Back to the reasons. So number one, they're going to make a lot of money. They're going to make really, really very, very favorable returns on their investment. Secondly, the second reason is because their investment is secure and it is safe. Now, this is in my world of single family houses. I'm not borrowing unsecured funds. So it's secure, meaning they're going to get a promissory note, but we're going to collateralize the private lender's promissory note with in North Carolina, a deed of trust. Most states call it a mortgage. So if you, the borrower, don't pay them, the property does, right? So it's secure. It's safe because it is a conservative loan to value on the single family house. So my program that I teach my private lenders, that my mastermind members use as well, is we don't borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. I didn't say 75% of the purchase price. We always bring home a big check. That's one reason I love private money, is because we always bring home a big check when we purchase the property, which, by the way, if you can't bring home a big check on a single family house when you buy it and take no money to the closing table, you're paying too much for the property. The third reason our private lenders / investors love doing business with us is because their investment, their principal loan amount, the value of their investment is not volatile. So in other words, I'm contrasting being a private money lender and using your money as a private lender versus investing in the stock market or mutual funds. If an individual invests in the stock market or mutual funds, they already lost money. There's fees, there's commissions. But in this opportunity, being a private money lender or investor, there's nothing that comes out of the principal loan amount. So if somebody, for easy figuring, loans $100,000 on a deal. I pay them 8%. No origination fees, never have, never will, straight 8%, and have since 2009, even in the ups and downs of the market. And so at $100,000, they know if I use that money for a year on a property, they're going to earn $8,000. They know what the return is going to be, and they don't have to worry about the volatility of the value of that investment. And then as a bonus, a fourth reason, we have a way that our investors can get their money back early prior to the note coming due in case they have an emergency. So we put in the promissory notes what we call a 90-day call option. So if they need their money back in case of an emergency, they just give us notice. We replace their money with another private lender's money, and there's no penalty involved. That seldom to never happens, but at least that gives them a peace of mind. They got a way they can get it back in case they've got some kind of emergency. But Frank, Eric, those are the big reasons. Well, the fifth reason is really the number one reason that we already said. They do business with us because they trust us and they believe we can perform.
Jay, that's amazing. And I think, I think now more than ever, people would rather have their money out there invested in real estate than sitting in a bank. And, when you speak to people and you're teaching them something like this and you tell them that they could have security and something stable. And I mean, obviously you have an amazing track record. And you just, that is exactly what you stick to, right, Jay? Single family housing, the same recipe over and over and over again, right? I mean, and as time goes on, I mean, I'm assuming, your track record has been consistent with that. And you invest all over the country, Jay?
No, I only invest my private lender money right here in my local market, here in Eastern North Carolina. Now, my mastermind community, they're all over the nation and even in, Hawaii. But my own personal deals are right here locally. I don't have to do that. I mean, I interviewed an amazing individual yesterday on my podcast, Raising Private Money. Interviewed him, and I mean, he invests all over the nation. He's a wholesaler, but he invests all over the nation. I've just made a business decision for my deals. If I can't drive by it, then I'm not so much interested. But I mean, that's just a business decision. As long as you got boots on the ground and got eyes, that can report back to you what's going on, you can invest anywhere. By the way, you said something just a moment ago, Eric, that's very, very important. And that is you were talking about consistency, the same program, repeat and rinse. And that's it. I don't pay private lender A one deal, one thing, private lender B another thing, private lender C another thing. I can't keep up with all that. And by the way, they talk, right? They talk. And so I pay all my private lenders the same exact, it's all the same program to everybody. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And I think this goes to the point for somebody who's starting out their real estate investing journey, where the concern is, do I have the capital or the institutional relationships to get involved in a deal that I know works? But what you're suggesting is, hey, build that network of private lenders first, right? And then when you find the opportunity, now you're not selling the deal, right? But you're basically saying, hey, now I'm coming to the time where I can generate 8% return or 9% or whatever deal structure you have. You can now execute on what you've already told them. Is that the program?
Yes, that is the program. So Eric and Frank, here's what I'd love to share with you and your audience as to how I get all my deals funded without ever asking for money. So okay. I've already shared part of the secret sauce, and that is teaching the opportunity first with no deal attached to it. Now, this works in single family housing. This isn't necessarily going to work if you're syndicating for mobile home parks. But with single family houses, here's how it works. So I've put on my teacher hat. I've taught, an individual, the opportunity. And here's why. Right? So let's just role play here for a second. Frank, let's say that you're one of my new private lenders, hypothetically speaking, and I've shared the opportunity with you. You know what it's about. By the way, an easy way to share the opportunity, I've raised $969,000 at one private lender luncheon, where I just invite 20 people. I feed them lunch. I do my little 20-minute PowerPoint presentation and teach them about private money with no deals attached to it. Anyway, so you're one of my new private lenders. And let's just say hypothetically, Frank, you got $150,000 sitting in a retirement account somewhere that you're not liking the return. Let's say it's in a former employer 401k plan, or maybe it's in the stock market. It's Schwab or Morgan Stanley or Edward D. Jones, wherever it is. It's dedicated retirement funds. You're not happy with the performance. You like my program better. So I've introduced you to a self-directed IRA company that I recommend, and you've moved that $150,000 with no tax effect over to the self-directed IRA company, also known as a third-party custodian. Took a couple of weeks for you to move your money over. It's sitting there, and now you're ready to go. So how do I get you to fund a deal without asking you to fund the deal? It's called, Frank, the good news phone call. The good news phone call. And here's the script. I'm going to share with you and Eric and your audience right now the exact script of what to say when you're calling up your private lender for them to fund your single family house deal. So I call them up. Frank, you answer the phone. We have a little chit chat. And then I say, Frank, I have got great news. I can now put your money to work that you've moved over to the self-directed IRA company. I've got a house under contract in Newport Township. The after repaired value is $200,000. Now, the funding required for the deal is $150,000. Of course, that matches up to what you got to invest. Closing is going to be next Friday, so I'll need for you to wire your funds from your retirement account to my real estate attorney's trust account. I'm going to have my attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation, for goodness sakes. The most stupid thing in the world I could do is ask you, do you want to fund the deal? Well, of course you want to fund the deal for two big reasons. Number one, you moved your money over to the self-directed IRA company at my recommendation, and you're not making any money on that money until I put your money to work. You are counting on me to invest that money for you. Secondly, I'm not going to bring a deal to the table for you to fund unless it matches the criteria of the program that I already taught you. And so I am morally and ethically obligated to put your money to work because you've already moved it over and you're waiting for the good news phone call.
You know, that's a great program. And, you know, Eric and I happen to know somebody that we've done business with who does private lending, right? And he's been doing it since the mid 90s. And, you know, the compounding effect for your investors, which I'm sure if you told their stories from when they started till now, because not especially being in their retirement account, that money's sitting in their retirement account. So the next time out, they don't have 150,000 to lend. They have 170,000 to lend. Then they're getting 8% on the 170. That compounding effect of that capital is tremendous, right? It creates a tremendous amount of wealth for your investors. And I'm sure you probably have some stories of investors who've been with you from 2009 till now. And the returns can be astronomical. I mean, it's wealth changing and probably life changing, and at least sets up their retirement better than ever.
It is life changing. Carol, Joy, and I have gotten, I've lost count, how many handwritten thank you notes from our private lenders thanking us for changing their retirement years. You know, you got somebody that's got $400,000, $500,000 in retirement money. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to touch that money. They want that money to make them money so they can live off of that money. And, you know, here's part of the mindset we got to get straight. Back to the no chasing, begging, selling, all that stuff. You know, the traditional way to borrow money is the bank is serving us, right? That's a switch here. It's a switch. It's a 180-degree mind shift. We are serving our lenders.
Mhm.
We are serving our lenders. We're making a difference in their income, in their retirement years, if they're using retirement funds. So it really, really is a win-win scenario for everybody. And not only is it a win-win, I'll just say this: there's more money than you can use. There's more money than there are deals. There's more money than there are deals. Prior to COVID in 2020, there was $18 trillion in cash sitting on the sidelines waiting to be invested somewhere. Today, this side of COVID in 2025, $31 trillion in cash waiting to be used. So, you know, the scarcity mindset says there's no money. The abundant mindset says there's more than I can use. You know, I got to meet John Maxwell in person about 3 months ago. John Maxwell, the most amazing speaker I've ever met in my life. I love his books. I've got all of them. But here's an example of John Maxwell's abundant mindset. He says, when you've got a problem, quote unquote, there's always a solution. And in fact, not only always a solution, but there's always multiple solutions. So having the mindset of being a victor instead of a victim is paramount.
What a great point.
Yeah, you cannot get to be a successful investor by being the victim, right? The only way that you can create wealth and create that abundant life that you want is by having that abundant mindset, right? So you have to envision it first, and then your mind will make it happen. If you don't have that mindset, then it's never going to work. If you focus on the negative will occur. If you focus on the positive, you will find the path. So I think that's a huge message to have there. And you know, I love the fact that you're saying it's all between your head, right? And that is a lot of what we do and how you do it. It's you have to envision a pathway forward to make it happen. I think we've uncovered a lot. And I know if you're listening out there and you're taking note of this, there's more to this than Jay, you've broken down very simply for us. But if somebody has more information or wants more information about private lending, how they could be utilizing this in their own way to build their real estate business from the investment side, or if they just want to be a private lender, how would they get more information from you to find out about that?
Well, I did mention it when we started out, and I knew we talked about perhaps doing it in another segment. But since you asked, the best way to find out how to do it is to just let me send your audience for free my book, to tell you the truth. Where to Get the Money Now. By the way, this is not an ebook. It's a real book. It's a bestseller, Where to Get the Money Now. Subtitle, How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional Money or Hard Money Lenders. I'd love to autograph it, send to your audience for free, just covers shipping. And they can pick it up at Jay Conner. So here's how to get plugged in, www.jayconner.com/book. So I'm an ER, not an OR. JAYCONNER.com/book. And I'll express it out, United States Post Office, 3-day express.
So I have another important question to ask you, right? You know, I am a very enthusiastic person. I think I'm pretty excited. Just how much coffee do you drink in the morning to be this excited? Like, you overshot my enthusiasm by yards. So I just need to know how much coffee you drink in the morning. How does that happen? Or is it just the North Carolina air that gives you that pep?
Well, I mean, I'll actually answer your question there, and it's threefold. First of all, when I wake up in the morning, I remind myself I have a choice as to how I want to view this day. I got a choice as to how I want to view this day. Secondly, I meditate every evening in my bed with earphones for 15 minutes by listening to an app called Abide, Abide, Abide. And then thirdly, ooh, doggies, I'm going to give an unshameful plug for this company that I drink their product, and it's amazing. And it's called RYZE, pronounced rise, play on words, RYZE. No, I don't own stock in it. No, I have no idea who the owners are, but it's mushroom coffee. So get you some mushroom coffee, guys.
So Jay, I somehow ordered it, and they double subscribed me, and I
Oh, did you order?
have,
You ordered Rise, RYZE?
I have literally 50 bags of it, and I
Would you send me some? Would you send me some?
I'm gonna trade you some Rise for one of your books.
Hey, that's a deal, man. That's a
100%.
deal.
And I'll autograph it for you.
Woo, doggies.
So that's the second. Now you're the second person that told me about Rise. I'm gonna have to try it. But this was a lot to unravel here. Eric, any closing notes on this?
No, Frankie. I mean, you said it right. I mean, he's got a great personality. I'm pumped about Friday. Friday is one of my favorite days. Jay, it's just a closeout to, especially when you have a productive week. But you definitely put some pep in my step today to carry out the rest of my day. Be great to read your book for everybody out there who's looking to get a wealth of knowledge from someone who's very successful. Make sure you reach out to him. And one more time, Jay, where can they find you, or where can they subscribe to get that book?
Sure. Go to www.jayconner.com/book. And Eric, you just gave me an idea. I'm going to get a banner. You know, I have live events called the Private Money Conference, and we have people come in from all over the nation for my live events. And I got banners of quotations on the wall in the conference room. I got a new banner I'm going to get printed up. It says, quote unquote, Jay Conner, he'll put pep in your step.
I love it. I love it.
Jay, I really hope to see that. I really hope to see that.
This has been a lot of fun. And if you're listening out there, streaming, or you're watching on YouTube, if you have somebody you know who would benefit from learning about private lending and or utilizing private lending either in their real estate business or wants to get involved in private lending, share this episode from Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. Share this episode with them and drop a comment down below. This has been the MHP Exchange podcast, brought to you by the MHPExchange.com. Go there for your tips, opportunity, news, entertainment involving the MHP world and anything MHP related. But this is just a good, like a masterclass on private lending and the importance of that in your real estate investment business. Until next time, everybody, happy investing. Okay. Jay, we're going to do that one more clip. We'll just do straight on the book, and we'll just say, you know, Eric, you want to ask him a question about the book, and then he'll just let him go with it.
Jay,
say you want to? Yeah, okay, go.
What do you want?
No. Go ask him a question about the book.
So, Jay, we've heard about your book. I have not read it. I can't wait to read it. Very successful guy, great personality. Can you just tell us about your book and where we can find it? And, to everyone else out there, he's offering out this book for absolutely free. Take it away, Jay.
Sure. So I'm excited about my book. It's all about private money and private lending, and that is how to get funding for your real estate deals without having to rely on any banks. You don't have to rely on hard money lenders, any kind of institutional money at all. And this is the world where you get to make the rules. I promise you, read my book. You will never have to worry about missing out on any real estate deals for not having the funding. And here's the book. The name of the book is Where to Get the Money Now. Subtitle, How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional or Hard Money Lenders. This is not an ebook. This is a book. It's a national bestseller. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Where to Get the Money Now by Jay Conner. You can get it on Amazon for $20, but for goodness sakes, don't spend $20. Let me give it to you for free. Just cover shipping. I'll autograph it. I'll 3-day express it to you. Where to Get the Money Now by Jay Conner. It will plug you in to get funding for your real estate deals with never have to worry about missing out on your real estate deals.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
You got you. One more time, get the book for free. Just cover shipping at www.jayconner.com/book. Again, that's Jay Conner, JayConner.com/book.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jayconner.com/moneyguide. That's JCONNER.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jayconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.